Hello and welcome to our Midweek podcast. I'm here with my good friend Teek Hamilton.
Hey, Jerry.
Hi, Teek. And this is the podcast for First Baptist Church Sweetwater. And today we want to give a shout out to our greatest fan. Thank you for being here, Stacy. Stacy promised us that she'd be a part of our podcast this week, and so there you go. Why do you think Stacy's our biggest fan, Teek?
I have no idea.
Well, just to give you a little bit of insight, she listens regularly. She helps us out. She coaches us a bit sometimes.
Right.
And because she is a frequent listener.
Yep.
But there's been a strange turn in her experience with our podcast, with our social media posts, some of our videos. A strange turn this summer, and that's her fascination with the pause.
Right. She loves the pause.
She is all about the pause.
She just likes taking pictures of the pause and then making fun of us. Okay.
Wait. How can she be making fun of us and be our greatest fan?
It's a love relationship. I don't know.
It's possible that she's not our greatest fan. If you feel like you're our greatest fan, give us a shout out and we'll consider it and maybe have you on the show as well. Teek, it was a good weekend.
Yeah, it was busy, but it was good.
Yeah, all about this Nerf war thing.
That was hilarious. We had, at our house, the first hour we had one group come over. The second hour we had two or three. For the last 4 hours, I would literally walk inside. This is a true story. Stacy was making a sandwich. She'd gotten 2 pieces of bread out. She'd put peanut butter on one. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Someone's in our driveway." And we take off running, grabbing Nerf guns, waiting for the doorbell to ring. And I walk back in after that group leaves. And the knife is sitting there on the peanut butter bread. And the other bread has nothing on it. So then she starts putting on the jelly, gets it put together, takes a bite and goes, "Someone's in our driveway." And so she sets it down, one bite out of it. And it was that way the rest of the day. So it was fun. It was exhausting, but it was fun.
So that was all day Saturday.
That was Saturday.
At
it was
your house.
Yeah.
And then
Acres on
at
Sunday.
the Acres on Sunday.
Yeah. And that's
there's a lot of videos on our Facebook page too with that.
A lot of videos. We set up someone thought that we had a Ring doorbell, and that was
okay.
And that's what they said, "Man, that's good visual." I said, "No, that was our iPad set up right there in those windows." And so put on one of my youth ministry Facebook pages I'm part of, and it blew up. Everybody loved it. So
well, that's great. Well, it was a lot of fun.
Trend.
It was a lot of fun. We talked about it a little bit in our family, so it was good. Long weekend. We had some time away. Office was closed on Monday, and so we're kind of trying to figure out what normal looks like, which isn't.
We've been
normal.
doing that ever since spring break started.
I know
2.5 months ago.
It's a little bit crazy. I mean, we're trying to sit down and talk about June, and instead of pilgrimage and camp and P3, we got none of that.
Right.
And so
Stacy was on her Facebook Zoom with her class or something like that, and I think one of the dads said something like, "I'm so glad that this is the last one. This has been the longest spring break ever, and I'm glad the summer's now starting." I'm like, that's basically what it was.
A part of our conversation this week already has been, when did school end? And so it was.
I still don't think anybody knows.
It's hard to distinguish when or if it has ended.
It might still be going.
I did see a lot of graduation photos on Facebook, and of course you're having to kind of interpret how they did this across the country in different places. But we're next week, so I shared at our staff meeting, is next week we'll sit down and it will be in June.
Right.
So
it's here.
Yeah. This last week of May, we've had 2 interesting Sundays that we don't probably talk a lot about in our church, but I'll re-listen to last week's podcast, Teek, and if we do talk much about it, the last week was very confusing. Mostly on my part, because I got ahead of myself saying Pentecost Sunday was Ascension Sunday.
Gotcha.
Previously on a podcast or my midweek update, I said that Pentecost was 40 days after the resurrection. Ascension's 40 days roughly, and then Pentecost is 50. And so anyway, Sunday is Pentecost Sunday, and today both Teek and I wore red shirts.
Yep.
Mine is red-ish. but I decided to go with a collar, or we would have been Twinkies again.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Isn't bad. But we don't ever plan that. People think we do, but we don't.
No. Wait, they don't. There's not thinking that we planned this podcast.
True.
There's a little planning,
but red's the color of Pentecost.
Right.
The fire, tongues of fire coming down.
Right. So that's where we'll be Sunday in Acts chapter 2, I think it is, and talking about the events of that day. And I think what you start to see is that it makes the previous week's messages and thoughts start to make more sense. I was looking at the lectionary again, and we talked a lot about that last week, but sometimes what we would do is follow the appearances of Jesus in the Gospels.
Right.
But most often I use this period to talk about the church. That's my strong tendency and passion there in the way that we develop it. And so we come back to a lot of these verses, and they're not in order.
Right.
So for us, last week and this coming week, it kind of goes back to the very beginning part of Jesus preparing his disciples for his departure.
Well, a couple weeks ago, I was in the midst of a texting conversation I didn't even bring it up. It was about what is the miracle at Pentecost? Is it that the disciples spoke in new tongues or new languages, or was it that the people heard in their own language? So that was an interesting conversation. Let you read the passage and figure out for yourself. Maybe you'll enlighten us Sunday.
Yeah, or maybe I won't.
I think people are probably still discussing it.
They have been discussing it for a very long time. But it is a good start to the new story, and that was the word that. And I'm guessing it's hard to tell sometimes, because when you are in a vocation like I'm in, which is a lot of talking, you feel like you'll zero in on something that may be a theme or something, and you go, wow, it seems like I'll use that word a lot. Well, the word that I caught this week that I kind of had that moment in was the word new, but it's fitting when you consider everything that had been new, and new theology, new development there, new experience of the church. Yeah. And on Sunday we talk about the coming of the Spirit, and so it's something that is new in their experience, and we're trying to interpret it for that time, but then also try to find it a way to make meaning or have meaning for us today.
Yeah. When you talk about the new and all that, it made me think just then, I wonder if people are just constantly expecting something new to happen around the corner, because so much had happened from the time Jesus died and was resurrected to Pentecost Sunday that it's just boom, 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 boom. So they're constantly living in anticipation of what's going to happen next.
I think I read a piece in one of the commentaries last week, and I think I said it Sunday in some form, that nothing had gone according to plan.
Right.
And so, when you look at those experiences, and I think you bring your own personality and thought process into the way people responded just from reading the stories, you come up with a lot of scenarios of their experience. And, I think basically the apostles were on their heels, right, with uncertainty and still trying to make sense of things. For one, they were having to make sense on their own, which was different than with Jesus being with them all the time. And then there wasn't really anything that they could base it on what they were experiencing from previous learning.
Right.
And so that creates a bit of a different kind of scenario for a life. But I think for us, we probably tend to see that as a little more adventurous part of faith, but not everyone likes adventure.
Right, because Jesus says you will receive power. Then they have to interpret for themselves, what does power look like? What is that going to be? Because they saw Jesus do a lot of amazing things. What's it look like they're going to do now?
Right, and the magnitude of the ministry as it got started was also significant and played a role, I think, in their responses to the way God was working at this particular time in their experience. For one, it was through them,
right,
but also in a very, very big way.
Yeah, and then even as the stories that you've already kind of taught on, things that happen with Stephen and Philip and some of those, that it's not just contained with the apostles after that. It begins to spread to all of Jesus' followers.
Right. And that's this last Sunday was the Acts 1:8 verse was included in the text that we read, where Jesus said that the gospel was going to move out from Jerusalem to other parts of the world. And of course, with Paul, we talked about that because his ministry really took place, most of it away from there. His journeys, missionary part of his life, away from Jerusalem. So he was encountering different people and different thoughts. But yeah, definitely it was a process of learning on the go and learning quickly, I'm assuming.
It is fun to go back and look, well, fun for me. I don't know if it's fun for everybody, to go back and look at the stories of even the traditions of the different apostles and what happened to them and where they took the gospel. Because we see in Scripture where Paul goes mainly, that's the majority of New Testament. But then you start looking at the traditions of the apostles and where they ended up, like Thomas and some of those. It's pretty cool for someone being called Doubting Thomas, going to India and converting the whole country, 98% or something like that. Yeah. So.
Well, it's a very fun time to be into the particular verses that we're in and thinking about that. And then we've already started, and I'm guessing this, hopefully, maybe it's one of the reasons I stay confused on this podcast about where we are, because we're already started talking about the next series and what we're doing and the themes there and developing a story there. So, including P3 Live, which I said we weren't having our normal summer calendar. We're not, but we are having P3.
Right.
We're just doing it differently. We're doing it online.
And it's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. It's going to be live. The start of it will be live, and then pre-recorded parts put in there, and it'll be like having P3 in your own home. So,
yeah, with a lot of elements to it, and I think that's what makes it fun, or at least potentially in our minds makes it sound fun.
And we've got some surprise elements that we're planning to put together that'll be in there that will probably never be a part of P3 again, but for this time it'll make it engaging and exciting.
You want to tell us what some of the surprises are? I'll close Stacy's ears.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not telling any of them, but it's going to be surprising.
Does Stacy already know?
I don't know if Stacy knows.
Well, we don't want to let it slip here.
I get in trouble a lot of times because I forget to tell things. So she might not know this one.
Don't we all? Anyways, well, we are looking forward to this next week. We're looking forward to summer. It is a time of regathering for worship. And so we look forward to seeing some of you in our worship service on Sunday. And we've tried to kind of help everyone prepare to brace themselves that it's not going to be maybe as fun and exciting and upbeat as what we had imagined at one time. But it is a part of the process of us beginning to come back together. So be wise in coming, and so follow all the guidelines, and hopefully we'll see some of you here Sunday. And what we've promised is that this first Sunday is going to be sort of a backstage view to how we do the live stream. So we're not going to change. We're going to clean up a bit, but basically not change anything in terms of our set for this Sunday's worship.
Yep.
So it ought to be fun, and we look forward to seeing a few of you on Sunday and you seeing us on our live stream.
See ya.